This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 817 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Hillary Hebert, senior editor of Dressage Today, joins Dressage radio show hosts Reese Kofler-Stanfield and Philip Parks with several tips for dressage riders on how to improve their riding position. And we'll get right to our tip after this nutritional minute from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
Have you heard of a yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii? It's a type of probiotic that benefits your horse's digestive tract. Often referred to as S. boulardii, it works in several different ways. One unique property of S. boulardii is that it supports the stimulation of the enzymes found in the intestinal lining. These enzymes help your horse digest starches and sugars in the small intestine. When the sugars and starches are more completely digested, fewer of them escape into the hindgut, where they can ferment and cause imbalances that may lead to colic, diarrhea, and laminitis. Saccharomyces boulardii is found in Nalox Advanced, made by Kentucky Performance Products. Nalox Advanced contains a blend of yeast, fermentation solubles, and stomach buffers. These ingredients work together to maintain your horse's digestive tract in peak condition. Nalox Advanced is recommended for horses of all ages and stages and is fed on a daily basis.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
This month, we are lucky enough to have a new expert for the clinic that I was talking about earlier, Suzanne Monditz, and she's a fantastic biomechanics authority. She is going to be critiquing riders' photos that they submit, and everybody is welcome to submit them, so I encourage any listeners to do that. She also gives really neat tips that anyone who's reading can use in their own riding, and the one that I really liked is for an exercise that improves your lower leg position. And what she encourages you to do is to post in a trot with a jumping seat as opposed to a more upright dressage seat. And then when you're standing in the stirrups all the time, you want to deliberately move one of your lower legs rhythmically forward and back into the middle position, and then further back than that. So it's almost like a pendulum, what you're doing. Then you want to go and alternate and do that with the other leg. And then when you're comfortable with doing that, you want to alternate each leg one at a time so that when one is back, the other is forward, and you're almost doing kind of like a little scissor kick back and forth. And that will give you a lot of awareness and control for your lower legs, as opposed to what I sometimes hear with our experts in the publication of, kind of having a very stick-like figure in your dressage position. This is giving you more mobility and balance from motion as opposed to stiffness.
How would somebody submit a photo? How does that work?
So the most important thing is it has to be a high-resolution photo, so nothing pulling off of your Facebook page. But most cameras on phones, I think, are pretty high enough resolution now. But I would encourage people, if they have a nice photo from a horse show or a clinic that they had, so that they're in a really nice turnout, that they just take that, you email it to us at dressagetoday@aimmedia.com, and the email address is just on our website, dressagetoday.com, so that they can go ahead and submit that, and then it just gets put into the line of photos to be critiqued, and then it will come up in an upcoming issue. And we pretty much have a small enough list that everybody who submits something will get critiqued as long as the photo is clear enough and, high enough resolution. And then the next most important thing is they absolutely must be wearing a helmet in the photo.
Yay.
Right. The helmet thing, very important. We're
Very important.
huge supporters of that, and I'm glad that the magazine is a big supporter of the riders and the clinics and everything in the magazine wearing helmets. That's super important.
Yeah, and that's something, on a side note, that's just really important for us. And obviously, not all of the top riders ride in helmets, so there are some people in top hats, but we, really have it be a rule of thumb that everybody has helmets, just so that we can be good role models. And there is not a day that you will catch me if you surprise me at the barn where I will not have one on. So,
That a girl. We feel the same way.
Tell us about the next article.
Okay, so this one is really neat. It's also a great rider position tip, and it's from Grand Prix trainer David Blake. And on a side note, his article is really interesting. He talks about a gender-based approach to training horses, and he just talks about anecdotally different horses, stallions and mares and geldings, and what he sort of experienced. But this is for every horse, regardless of the gender. When you're riding, that he says it's really important that all dressage riders have to learn to sit quietly so our horses stay responsive to the slightest shifts in our balance and seat. The less a rider moves, the better a horse can perform. And I think that David is really right, and it's really important for riders to remember this. Someone once told me that if you are unbalanced on your horse's back, it's almost like if you were to have a monkey on your back trying to perform a task. And if you think about with the dressage movements and the difficulty for the horses to maintain balance, having something on their back moving all around, that just makes it 10 times more difficult. And dressage is hard anyway. So I think that was a great tip.
Oh, it's so true. And I think it takes so much muscle control, and you can really think about how much body control it takes to sit still. It's a hard thing to do. So I think that's a great tip.
It's a really
hard
concept as well, because you're not exactly sitting still, right? You've got to kind of move with the horses, right? I mean, it's just really important not to be doing your own thing on top, but facilitating each movement with your own body, right? Because I see a lot of riders trying so hard to sit still, but they're actually kind of sitting against the movement, right? And that doesn't work either. I mean, it's really about creating that partnership and working together as the horse goes forward or back to a halt or sideways in a half pass. I think that's really, really the most difficult thing about riding dressage, because it's got to be so harmonious.
Right. And wouldn't you say too, though, that it takes, so much strength that way? You have to be strong, but also flexible. So it's important to do strength work, but also flexibility training so that you can do both things.
Well, I think what's really interesting, too, about it is I think it takes, do you guys notice that it takes more strength when it's new and less strength later?
Yes,
so that,
absolutely.
Like if you think of someone who has been bedridden or whatever for a while and they get up to just stand and walk, it's so fatiguing, and yet it's something we really take for granted as being easy. And I've definitely noticed as I progress in my training, it gets easier. And I definitely noticed because I can't have as many cookies as I did when I was younger. But
as me too.
And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed Reese and Philip chatting about all things dressage, you can tune in every week at dressageradio.com. You can also find lots more tips ranging from barn care to websites for horse people on horsetipdaily.com. Just look for the topics drop-down menu on the left. Don't forget to support our sponsors here on Horse Tip Daily because they make these podcasts possible. Today's podcast has been brought to you through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products. Find them online at kppusa.com. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.